Hey guys, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Alex here. Anyways, sure, yeah, not a problem on missing a video. School stuff above this stuff for sure. I'm glad you feel like you did well, especially. But I'm sorry that it was stress studying. That is the least fun. Sorry, my nose is still being weird. Shreya, you talking about the sand made me think. Went out to the sand dunes. You ever been to the sand dunes in Colorado? You know where those are? Great sand dunes. I went there and you can put your head in the sand or like ear up to it and you can hear everyone else's footsteps on the sand, which is a really, really neat experience. It's really cool. And also it makes a farting noise if you slide down on your stomach, which is also good. Shreya, I have no idea what you were doing with your mic, but during the first few minutes of your video, it sounds like there's an action fight going on behind the camera, which is an interesting visual, but it's also it was loud. I appreciate the sick tips. I have tried the honey. I don't think I've tried honey tea, but I have tried just straight honey lemon hot water. And that's a trip. That is crazy strong. But when it's stronger, it makes it feel like it's doing more. Interesting perspective on culture. Like that togetherness, I think, is a huge point that you brought up. But also the idea of just those shared values. That's pretty huge for me. I mean, in general, just being around people who don't share your values but are willing to entertain new ones is also a good, obviously a good place to be. But I don't think it's necessarily wrong to be around some people that reinforce it every so occasionally. I think just as long as it's balanced with maybe some opposing views or something like that. I don't know. Your question on parenting, really, really interesting one. Literally today, my mom told me I'm going to be exactly like her when I'm a parent. And I don't really want that. I love her and I appreciate her. But I think every kid tries to learn something from the way they've parented and try to turn that around into how they become a parent. But overall, I'm really not sure how I'd be as a parent. Right now, an awful one. I couldn't support another human, even if I tried. But eventually, I want to be a pretty good parent. But I feel like the difference is parenthood changes everything. So in high school, I was always waiting for the day I turned 18. Because that's the day I'm going to feel like an adult. There's something going to be different. I'm going to feel like an adult. It didn't happen. Same old, same old. I was like, oh, well, 20 is going to be it. That's 2 decades. Nope. 21. People have a lot of significance for that number, especially in the United States. I don't feel any different. I'm still sleeping. This is actually the same room that used to be my bedroom in elementary school. So made a whole lot of progress there. But in general, the next milestone, the milestone that I think does change everything, creating another human with your favorite human, that's straight wizardry. That's a game changer. After that, time is measured in BC and PC. BC being before child, and after child. It's a whole, it feels like I can only imagine it being a whole different world. And also given the idea that I haven't really been in a relationship longer than 7-8 months because I'm not great at them yet. But imagining an event like that, an event of having a kid, and if all goes well, and here's hoping everything goes great, that's supposed to last you the rest of your life. That's an event that changes your, there is a distinct, that is the split in your life. There is the point where you have a kid, and then that is supposed to be the time where you have a kid is supposed to be the rest of your life, if you're lucky and everything goes great. That's madness. That's crazy. So I don't feel like mentally anyone will ever be prepared before they have their first kid. I think all I can do is, the thought of parenting is mind-blowing. But before that, the thought of marrying someone, in my own mind, is also something that I'm working toward. That's crazy itself. So basically, I don't know what it'd be like to be a parent, because nothing still because right now nothing makes sense. Hey, Christoph. Dude, for sure watch Mr. Nobody. It's on Netflix and is honestly the only movie I've watched like 8+ times, and I would if you said, "Hey, Alex, I want to watch Mr. Nobody." Yes, all the time. Shreya, highly recommend to you as well. It's on Netflix. You have like no excuse. I just assume that everyone has Netflix. That's bad. But for sure, if you guys watch it, let's talk about it. A lot of big quotes and a lot of big thinks from me came out of that. Good English. Work went okay today. Honestly, like, nose was plugged up, not feeling super great, but the kind of conversations I have with my boss are just always great. Today we talked about the origin of consciousness and the origin of kind of like, when did a repeating chemical reaction value the continuation of itself as a chemical reaction enough to pursue like additional resources. Like, there's a very different thing between chemical reaction that happens to like oscillate between a couple of states, like it's a cycle, but then one that's like, okay, I'm out of this material, let's go find some more. That is a huge step. And so we were talking about that while installing someone's floor. But then we got into like more like nature versus nurture stuff, what makes people, everything. It's great. Then gym, yes, please, Christoph, I'm down. We should mesh schedules, figure out a time that works well, because I'm super down. Yeah, but also, Christoph, really want to counter your GPA recommendation. I hate GPA. GPA is the worst metric. Too many people tie their self-worth to GPA, and I myself am guilty of that at some points of my life. If you take a class or you take a test and 50-60% of the class fails the test, who does the teacher blame? The teacher blames the students. Who do the students blame? The teachers. That's understood. But whose fault is it really? When a teacher says, "Oh, some of you didn't study enough," that is very true. There are some students who did not study enough. But for others, it's, "Oh, you wanted me to fit what into my class schedule of 89 other classes, and where I have no time and I'm working 2 jobs to pay for this college degree," and stuff like that. Like, no teacher teaches a class and can, in my mind, can be like truly cognizant of every student's individual situation and every student's possible schedule. And in that way, like, also some teachers are just bad. Teachers are humans. Some of them pick favorites. Some of them give better grades to their favorites. Some of them are morning people and grade in the morning, and the students get better grades in that class. Some of them are night people and grade in the morning, and the students might get worse grades. But there's so many layers of abstraction away from your actual work that I don't think it's really, really, in my mind, not healthy at all to tie any bit of self-worth to that. There are too many variables outside your control. And I'm not trying to brag, but this is also coming from someone who, I have a 4.0 GPA in my major. I have like a 3 point something else in like overall, because calculus. But I did that fueled by pure stress. It wasn't sustainable. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. It's not productive. I finished those classes and I didn't feel like I learned anything, because I was running on, like, it was information in, spit it out exactly the way the teacher wants to hear it. And truthfully, what I would encourage you more to do, which it's harder, is to pursue competence. And that's hard because it's a subjective good. Like, someone's version of competent people's versions of competence are different. And there's no quantitative bar to pass that says, ding, you're competent. I feel like you have standards for your own success, both of you, Christoph and Shreya. And it's not, you have some inherent idea of when you're doing bad. GPA should not be that. You should not see your GPA and see a number and see that you are failing at what you want to be doing. I understand that there's a lot of stuff that ties to GPA. For me, a huge reason I keep it up is scholarships, just to keep those coming in. But balancing that with actually learning stuff. So in that way, pursuing opportunities that challenge you and make you think in different ways. GPA should be a side effect of that, in my mind, not the North Star. You're not shooting for a good GPA, you're shooting for knowledge. And the more knowledgeable you are, your GPA tends to be higher. But it tends. And like when I went to Las Vegas, the gambling machines, the biggest draw on some of those machines was like, there's a skill element here. If you are skilled enough, you can do this. I'm not saying GPA is gambling, because there's a lot more skill that goes into it than gambling, but there's enough abstraction between your input and enough variables that twist it before the output. It can't be read like a thermometer. It can't be read to tell you the temperature of the space you're around. I hope I know who you go to saying. Pursuing knowledge, not numbers. And it's hard because it's not specific. But in my mind, that's finding qualitative steps that are discrete, like where they're measurable. Like Shreya, you mentioned something, knowing all of the muscles in the body, knowing all of the bones in the human body. Great, that's a step, knowing all the bones. Versus GPA. And so then whenever the teacher knowing bones to the degree where a teacher can mention one, there's not even a second of processing. You're just like, okay, I know where that is. That's I don't know, in my mind, a way to measure competence, or just consistently challenging yourself and seeing what bars you can pass. For me, sometimes that's coding something that I really don't think I can do, coding it after like putting more time in than I'd want to, but then being like, okay, I did it. Next time I do that or get in that situation, I know how to address some of those problems. I learned something from that. I'm rambling. Video is 12 minutes long. Anyways, I also linked a spoken word in the description of I'm going to link a spoken word in the description of this video. For sure, watch it. It made me think a lot about. It's called "I Will Not Let Test Results Determine My Fate." Watch it. Curious to hear what you think. I don't know if it's my turn for a question, but reflection on that. If it is my turn for a question, if it isn't my turn for a question, I still want your reflections on that. On Christoph's point, on parenting, last thing, I'm not sure I like the idea of such extreme highs and lows, and maybe I'm thinking about it too technically in terms of like my own parenting later. Like you're talking about your dad's, Christoph, sorry. But I feel like I try to run a lot more average between those 2 points. Not the highest highs, not the lowest lows, but what I read too much on this kind of stuff, but like more of the idea of less motivation from external sources, less of the boundaries. So like you can get this low and then your parents like, no, or you can get this high and your parents like, yes, but more of like parents like, yeah, good job, or parents are like, hey, don't do that, and leaving more of the motivation to be more intrinsic. So knowing that you're not going to, knowing a certain level inside yourself of it, I think it goes back maybe to the pursuing competence, but it's just like intrinsic motivation, less motivation from external sources, like less bounding box from parents, and more just like a predictable kind of level. And if you want something outside of that, or if you want something else, it's pursuing that on your own. I don't know if it works that way. This video is 14 minutes long. I'm gonna end it. I'll see you guys later.